Welcome back to Infidelity Tales Lab. We're incredibly grateful for your support. Before we begin today's tale, tell us, which city or country are you joining us from? We love connecting with our global audience. Now let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Coming Home. Thomas Reeves gripped his house key, the metal biting into his palm as he stood before his Minneapolis home. His daughter's red bicycle lay abandoned in the frost-covered yard, a sight that should have welcomed him after 3 months away supervising construction projects. Instead, his gut twisted with an instinct honed from 15 years in the cutthroat construction industry. Something was wrong. The past year had been a calculated risk. His company, Cornerstone Building Solutions, had finally secured major contracts after weathering the recession. Taking on distant projects meant weeks away from his family, but Thomas hadn't built his company by letting sentiment override survival. His wife Diane had seemed to understand, though their recent calls had grown stilted, professional, like discussing business with a stranger. The doors swung open. A high-pitched scream shattered the quiet afternoon as his 7-year-old daughter Emma stumbled backward, her small body shaking violently. Her face drained of color as she stared at him with horror. "No, no, you can't be here." Emma's voice cracked with terror. "You're dead. Mommy told us you died in the crash. We had your funeral last month." Thomas's travel bag hit the ground. Above him, 10-year-old Michael appeared at the top of the stairs, clutching the baseball mitt Thomas had given him for his last birthday. The boy's face contorted in terror. "Dad's ghost." Michael's scream echoed through the house as he fled, his door slamming with enough force to rattle the walls. Thomas stepped inside, his military-trained instincts cataloging the changes. The family photos that had lined the hallway gone. Their comfortable old couch replaced by an expensive leather sectional. His office had been converted into a home gym, gleaming equipment arranged under lighting he hadn't installed. "Emma," he said, keeping his voice steady despite the rage building in his chest. "Where's your mother?" Emma pressed herself against the wall, tears streaming down her face. "You're not real. You're not real. The bad man said you were gone forever." "What bad man?" Thomas's question came out as a growl. "Uncle Robert," Emma whispered, then fled upstairs after her brother. Thomas stalked through his house, methodically documenting every betrayal. His clothes had vanished from the master bedroom. The garage stood empty, his tools gone along with the '69 Mustang he'd been restoring with Michael. Even his father's watch, a family heirloom tucked away in his dresser, had disappeared. His calls to Diane went straight to voicemail. Thomas dialed his insurance agent, Jack Parker, his free hand clenching into a fist. "Thomas?" Jack's voice cracked with shock. "Oh, God. Oh, Jesus. Jack, talk." Diane filed a claim. "Life insurance. $2.5 million. Jack's words tumbled out in a panic. "The policy you took out for your family. There's more." Robert Walsh was listed as a secondary beneficiary. They claimed he was an equal partner in Cornerstone. Thomas's vision darkened at the edges. Robert Walsh, his best friend since college, best man at his wedding, godfather to his children, the man who'd helped launch Cornerstone with a loan when banks wouldn't touch them. His phone buzzed, a text from his elderly neighbor, Mrs. Henderson. "I'm so sorry," she wrote. "I didn't know what they were planning." The attached photo showed Diane and Robert at what appeared to be a funeral. His children dressed in black, accepting condolences from a crowd of mourners. The date stamp read 3 weeks ago. Thomas stared at the image, memorizing every detail, face of the people who'd attended his funeral. His voice, when he finally spoke to the empty house, carried the cold certainty of a death sentence. "So, this is how you want to play it?" Chapter 2. The Web of Lies. The Prairie Inn Motel sat on the outskirts of Minneapolis, its neon sign flickering in the growing darkness. Thomas checked in under a false name, muscle memory from his Special Forces days taking over. The elderly desk clerk, Frank, studied Thomas's face and wordlessly upgraded him to a better room. "You look like a man who's seen his own ghost," Frank commented, sliding over the key. Thomas's laugh held no humor. "You could say that?" In room 114, Thomas began constructing his war room. Years of running construction sites had taught him the value of detailed planning. He spread documents across the bed, bank statements, property records, insurance policies. Each piece revealed another layer of betrayal. A knock at his door the next morning revealed Mrs. Henderson, wringing her hands nervously. Her confession spilled out between sobs. Robert came to me late one night. Said he knew about the money problems after George's stroke. She dabbed at her eyes. Offered me $10,000 to sign a witness statement. Said he saw you loading boxes. Assumed you were leaving Diane. The money? George's medical bills. Thomas's voice remained neutral, though his eyes hardened. Tell me everything. The funeral director, Gregory Morton, proved more resistant. Thomas cornered him after hours at Peaceful Rest Funeral Home, armed with financial discrepancies discovered through careful research. Interesting bookkeeping you have here, Thomas said, spreading printouts across Morton's desk. I wonder what the IRS would make of these creative deductions? Morton's facade cracked. Robert knew about my gambling. Said he'd bury me if I didn't help. He revealed how Robert had leveraged a county clerk named Dennis Wheeler to backdate and file false death certificates. Wheeler's got his own skeletons, Morton added, sweating. Robert's got dirt on half the county officials. Patricia Martinez, the school counselor, reached out through an encrypted email account. She'd been documenting disturbing changes in the children's behavior. Emma won't speak in class anymore, she wrote. Her art therapy sessions are concerning. All black crayon, scenes of crashes and graves. Michael's grades have plummeted. He's getting into fights, especially when other children mention fathers. Thomas obtained copies of Diane's instructions to the school. Mandatory black clothing for a month of mourning. She'd hired a child psychologist, Dr. Amanda Foster, for grief counseling. Thomas's investigation revealed Foster had lost her Wisconsin license for unethical practices. The school principal, James Morrison, had blocked Patricia's attempts to involve Child Protective Services. Further digging exposed Morrison's connection to Robert through a real estate scheme, flipping properties with questionable loans through Midwest Regional Bank. Thomas's reputation had been systematically destroyed over the past year. Diane had whispered to friends about his supposed instability, hinting at violent outbursts. Their couple's therapist, Dr. Russell, had conveniently lost records of sessions where Diane had displayed controlling behaviors. A deeper look revealed Russell's daughter had received a suspicious full scholarship to an exclusive private school, arranged by Robert through his position on the school board. You see the pattern? Thomas asked Frank late one night, the desk clerk having become an unlikely confidant. Every person in their orbit is compromised, bought, or blackmailed. Frank nodded sagely. Question is, what are you going to do about it? Thomas's smile didn't reach his eyes. I'm going to burn their whole world down. Chapter 3. The Breaking Point. Thomas finally confronted Diane by phone, his voice carefully controlled despite the rage coursing through his veins. Her response stripped away any lingering doubt. You were never supposed to come back, she said, her tone glacial. You're ruining everything. The kids were finally adjusting. Robert's going to be a better father than you ever were. They're my children, Thomas growled. Everything I built was for them. Was it for them when you missed Emma's dance recital? Diane's laugh dripped with venom. When you skipped Michael's baseball games? Robert was there. He's been there while you were playing hero to your workers. Thomas ended the call, his phone cracking in his grip. Moments later, photos began arriving from an anonymous number. The first set seemed innocent. Diane and Robert at school functions, family picnics, restaurant dinners. Then came the intimate ones taken in his bedroom, in his bed. The timestamps stretched back 2 years. The final images broke something loose inside him. Robert teaching Michael to ride without training wheels. The task Thomas had promised to complete upon his return. Robert helping Emma with her science project, beaming with paternal pride. The three of them plus Diane at Disney World, wearing matching shirts, during a week when Thomas believed they were visiting Diane's sick aunt in Denver. His phone buzzed again. Brandon Torres, his project manager in Detroit, sending urgent news. Robert had called an emergency board meeting of Cornerstone Building Solutions. The attached memo outlined a restructuring plan that would transfer control to a new management team, led by Robert Walsh. Thomas stood at the motel window, staring at his reflection. The man who believed in honest work and second chances in the power of forgiveness. That man died in room 114 of the Prairie Inn Motel. In his place stood someone harder, someone who understood that betrayal could only be paid for in blood. His phone rang. Brandon again. "What do you want me to do, boss?" Thomas's voice carried the finality of a judge passing sentence. "Give me everything. Every project file, contract, email." Roberts touched. "It's time to go hunting." He began making calls, leveraging old contacts from his military days. Within hours, surveillance photos arrived showing Robert and Diane at expensive restaurants, jewelry stores, car dealerships. They were spending the insurance money before it cleared. Thomas's laptop chimed with an email from his private investigator. She'd uncovered offshore accounts, shell companies, a pattern of financial manipulation dating back years. Robert hadn't just stolen his life. He'd been bleeding Cornerstone dry while pushing Thomas to take distant projects. A text arrived from an unknown number. "Meet me at midnight." Loading dock behind Cornerstone. Maria S. Maria Suarez, his cleaning staff supervisor, had news. Robert had changed the company's insurance, denying coverage for her daughter's medical treatment. She'd been keeping records, photographing documents before they went through the shredder. "He thinks we're invisible," Maria said, her voice hard. "The cleaners, the maintenance staff. But we see everything." The evidence mounted. Forged signatures, backdated contracts, systematic theft that had been happening right under Thomas's nose while he trusted his friend to watch over his family and business. In room 114, Thomas began planning his counterattack. Military training merged with construction expertise as he mapped out weaknesses in Robert's empire. Every corrupt official, compromised professional, person who'd helped steal his life, they'd all learned the cost of betrayal. His phone lit up with one final text from Diane. "The kids are better off without you. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Thomas deleted the message without responding. The time for words had passed. Now it was time for war. Chapter 4. Ghost in the Machine. Thomas stalked through the dimly lit hallways of Cornerstone, building solutions after hours, his footsteps silent against the carpet. The security cameras had been disabled, courtesy of Xavier Reyes, his new digital guardian angel. The cybersecurity expert services had cost him $50,000 in untraceable cryptocurrency, but the results were worth it. "Your new identity is bulletproof," Xavier had assured him, sliding a folder across the table at their discreet meeting. "James Morrison, independent construction consultant. Background checks will show 20 years of verifiable experience, references included. The documentation will withstand federal scrutiny." Now, Thomas accessed Robert's office using the key card Maria Suarez had cloned during her cleaning rounds. The loyal cleaning supervisor stood guard outside, walkie-talkie ready to alert him of any security patrols. "Senor Thomas," she'd said when approaching him with her offer to help. "Robert denied my Isabella's cancer treatment, said it wasn't covered under the new policy. My daughter suffers while he buys sports cars." Thomas booted up Robert's computer, inserting the USB drive Xavier had prepared. "Your daughter will get the best treatment available," he'd promised Maria. "I take care of my people." The encryption-breaking software worked its magic as Thomas rifled through Robert's desk drawers. A hidden compartment yielded a treasure trove. Loan Shark IOUs, forged contracts, receipts for jewelry and vacations paid with company funds. Thomas's phone buzzed. A text from Brandon Torres. Board meeting delayed. Robert spooked by the insurance company, freezing the payout. "He's making mistakes? Good. Let him squirm." The computer dinged, granting access. Thomas plugged in another drive, this one copying files at military-grade speed. Project transfers, shell company documentation, falsified cost reports. The digital evidence of Robert's systematic theft mounted. "Movement in the lobby." Maria's voice crackled through the radio. "Security guard doing rounds." Thomas finished the download and erased his traces. By the time the guard reached the executive floor, the office was empty, its secret stolen. Back in his motel room, Thomas connected with Samantha Knox, the insurance fraud investigator he'd hired. Her face on the video call showed the satisfaction of a predator scenting blood. "Your friend Robert's been busy," she said, shuffling through documents. "I've uncovered 3 previous insurance scams. Nothing this elaborate, but the pattern's clear. He targets wealthy acquaintances, orchestrates their deaths, splits the payout with their spouses. The victims usually disappear overseas, too ashamed to come back. But I came back, Thomas said, his voice carrying the finality of a death sentence. That's not all, Samantha continued. Remember Officer Pete Ramirez, who filed your accident report? He's got a gambling problem. Guess who holds his markers? The same loan sharks Robert owes millions to. Thomas added the information to his war room wall, connecting strings between photos and documents. Robert's empire wasn't built on business acumen. It was a house of cards held together by blackmail and desperation. A knock at his door revealed Janet Walsh, Robert's assistant. Cancer had hollowed her cheeks, but her eyes burned with purpose. I should have come forward sooner, she said, placing a thick envelope on his desk. I've kept records of everything. Robert's first scam was 10 years ago. A real estate developer in Chicago. The man's wife helped stage his death in a boating accident. Sound familiar? Thomas spread out Janet's evidence. Photographs, recorded conversations, bank transfers. Why now? Janet's laugh was bitter. I'm dying anyway. And Robert, he denied my insurance claim too. Said terminal cancer was a pre-existing condition. 15 years of loyalty, and he threw me away like trash. He'll pay for that, Thomas promised. They all will. His phone chimed with an email from Xavier. The cybersecurity expert had discovered something interesting in Robert's cloud storage. Videos of secret meetings, automatically backed up from his phone. In one, Robert and Diane sat with Dr. Foster, the fraudulent psychologist, planning how to manipulate the children's grief counseling. We need them believing their father's dead, Robert's recorded voice said. The insurance company might interview them. They have to be convincing. Thomas's fist clenched, knuckles white. The video continued, showing Diane's cold smile as she outlined how to use Emma's fear of drunk driving against her dead father's memory. Maria texted next. She'd found shredded documents in Robert's office trash. Once reassembled, they revealed a network of offshore accounts, each one funneling stolen money through shell companies. Mr. Thomas, Maria wrote, I found something else. Medical records. Robert's been forging insurance claims for fake employees, collecting the payouts. My Isabella wasn't the only one denied care. The evidence mounted, each piece adding weight to the noose Thomas was crafting. But it wasn't enough to just destroy Robert's schemes. Thomas wanted him to suffer, to watch his carefully constructed world crumble piece by piece. Another video call, this time with Brandon Torres. Boss, you need to see this. Roberts called an emergency board meeting for next week. He's planning to vote you out, claim mental instability. He's got the shareholders scared about the company's future. Thomas's smile would have chilled blood. Let him try. Keep playing along, Brandon. Let him think he's winning. As dawn broke over Minneapolis, Thomas reviewed his accumulated weapons, financial records, forged documents, video evidence, witness testimonies. Robert had built his empire on betrayal and manipulation. Now those same tools would become instruments of his destruction. Thomas's phone buzzed one final time. A message from Xavier. Found something big in the encrypted files. Robert's been embezzling from his own son's trust fund, using the money to pay off loan sharks. Want me to send it to his ex-wife? Not yet, Thomas replied. The timing has to be perfect. When we move, we take everything. The man who died in room 114 of the Prairie Inn Motel hadn't just resurrected. He'd evolved into something more dangerous. A ghost with teeth, a shadow with claws, a revenge artist painting in shades of destruction. Robert Walsh was about to learn the true cost of betrayal. Chapter 5, The Children's Truth. Patricia Martinez's office at Lincoln Elementary felt like neutral ground for Thomas's first supervised visit with his children. The school counselor had arranged everything, ensuring both kids' safety and comfort. Emma entered first, clutching her art therapy folder. The 7-year-old's steps faltered when she saw Thomas, her small body tensing. Michael followed, his father's baseball mitt held like a shield against his chest. Remember what we talked about, Patricia said gently. Your dad is really here. This is a safe space to ask questions. Emma's voice came out barely above a whisper. Uncle Robert said you were drunk. That you crashed your truck because you didn't love us anymore. Thomas kept his voice steady despite the rage burning in his chest. I never stopped loving you. I need you to know that everything they told you about my death was a lie. Prove it, Michael challenged, his young face hard. Prove you're really our dad. Thomas met his son's gaze. The last time we worked on the Mustang together, you stripped a bolt on the carburetor. You were scared I'd be mad, but I showed you how to fix it. I told you that mistakes are how we learn. Michael's tough facade cracked. The baseball mitt was for your 10th birthday, Thomas finished. You wanted the same model as Carlos Correa. The sporting goods store was sold out, so I drove to 3 different cities to find it. The boy's shoulders started shaking. Emma moved closer to her brother, their shared pain a tangible thing. Why did Mommy lie? Emma asked, tears spilling. Why did she make us wear black clothes and go to your funerals? Thomas's hands clenched into fists under the table. Your mother and Robert did a very bad thing. They hurt a lot of people, including you. But I'm here now, and I'm going to make it right. Later, in a private meeting with Emma's art therapist, the full extent of the psychological manipulation emerged. The therapist spread out Emma's drawings, black crayon scenes of crashes and graves, but also something more disturbing. She drew this last week, the therapist said, revealing a picture labeled The Bad Man's Promise. It showed Robert looming over the children, his figure distorted and threatening. Emma says he told them if they didn't pretend to believe you were dead, he would make it real next time. Thomas studied the drawing, memorizing each detail of his daughter's terror. Has she drawn anything else about Robert's threats? The therapist hesitated, then produced another picture. This one showed Diane and Robert laughing at what appeared to be the funeral, while small figures of Emma and Michael cried in the corner. Michael's sessions revealed different wounds. The boys' school counselor shared reports of his fights, specifically targeting classmates with present, loving fathers. He's expressing misdirected anger, the counselor explained. In one session, he admitted that Robert promised to adopt them both. Said they could become Walshes instead of Reeves, have a real father who'd always be there. Thomas's voice was deadly calm. Did my son believe him? No, the counselor said. Michael kept your baseball mitt hidden under his bed, along with family photos he rescued from your wife's purging of the house. Deep down, he never accepted your death. A breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Eleanor Sterling, Thomas's former mother-in-law, requested a meeting at her country club. I never thought you were good enough for my daughter, Eleanor admitted over tea. But watching what she and Robert did to those children, I was wrong about you, Thomas. Eleanor revealed dark patterns in Diane's past. In college, she falsely accused her boyfriend of assault when he caught her cheating. Nearly ruined the boy's life. I paid him off to drop the charges. Told myself she'd grow out of it. Did she ever get counseling? Thomas asked. Robert helped her hide everything, Eleanor said, dabbing at her eyes. Even back then, he was her confidant. When she got pregnant before your wedding, and it wasn't yours, Thomas, Robert helped her get an abortion using your honeymoon savings. Thomas absorbed this new betrayal with cold focus. The children need stability now. Will you help? Those are my grandchildren, Eleanor said firmly. I'll do whatever it takes to protect them. And Thomas, there's something else you should know. Diane's been withdrawing large sums from the family trust. Money that was meant for the children's education. The next supervised visit showed small improvements. Emma brought a new drawing, still in black crayon, but this time showing a figure labeled Real Daddy standing between her and the bad man. Uncle Robert said mean things about you, she confided. But I remembered when I was sick with flu, and you stayed up all night telling me stories. Bad people don't do that, right? Right, Princess, Thomas said softly. Bad people don't do that. Michael had brought his baseball mitt. I practiced with Brandon sometimes, he admitted. He's not as good at coaching as you. But he said you'd come back. He was the only grown-up who told me the truth. Thomas made a mental note to give Brandon Torres a substantial raise. I'll never leave you again, son. That's a promise. As the visit ended, Patricia Martinez shared more concerns. Robert's been pressuring the school board to transfer the children to a private academy, one where he has connections. He's trying to isolate them further. Thomas's response carried the weight of absolute certainty. That's not going to happen. None of their plans are going to happen anymore. In the parking lot, Eleanor was waiting. I've spoken to my lawyers, she said. I'm filing for emergency grandmother's rights. It will give us another layer of protection for the children. Thomas nodded, his mind already calculating the next moves in his war. Robert and Diane hadn't just stolen his life. They'd traumatized his children, used their innocent pain as weapons. That debt would be paid in full, with interest measured in tears and blood. The children's truth had become another weapon in his arsenal, but also a shield protecting his humanity. Everything he'd do next would be justified by the hurt in Emma's drawings, the anger in Michael's fights, the trust they'd managed to preserve despite it all. Robert Walsh had threatened to make Thomas's death real next time. He was about to learn that some threats work both ways. Chapter 6: The Puppet Master. The strings holding Robert Walsh's empire together began unraveling under Thomas's systematic assault. Each pull revealed new weaknesses, new pressure points to exploit. Brandon Torres's latest report confirmed the extent of Robert's desperation. He's $3 million in the hole to some serious people, Brandon said, showing Thomas photographs taken outside an underground poker game. Loan sharks connected to the Chicago outfit. They're not known for their patience. Thomas studied the photos. Robert's familiar confident smile looked strained now, his designer's suit wrinkled from nervous sweating. Have you traced the money he's embezzled from Cornerstone? Better, Brandon grinned. Found proof he's been stealing from his own son's college fund, set up after his divorce from Catherine Walsh. He's been using it to chase losses at the poker tables. Speaking of Catherine Walsh, she arrived at Thomas's motel room carrying a thick file folder. Robert's first wife had aged gracefully, her elegant appearance masking a core of steel. I should have come forward sooner, she said, spreading documents across the table. Robert's pulled this insurance scam before. 3 other women, 3 other deaths faked. None as elaborate as yours, but the pattern's clear. Thomas examined the evidence. Why didn't you report it? He threatened Kyle. Catherine's voice hardened. My son was 14 when he discovered one of Robert's schemes. Robert made it clear what would happen if Kyle talked. Right on cue, Kyle Walsh arrived. The 17-year-old was tall like his father, but carried himself with his mother's quiet dignity. He placed a worn journal on the table. I've been documenting everything, Kyle said. Dad's late-night phone calls, his meetings with shady people, cash deposits that appeared from nowhere. I tried telling Officer Ramirez once, but Robert owns him, Thomas finished. Gambling debts. Kyle nodded. Dad uses people's weaknesses, gets dirt on them, then adds them to his collection. Like puppets on strings. Thomas's phone buzzed. Xavier had cracked another layer of Robert's encrypted files. The evidence was damning. Systematic theft, money laundering through construction projects, bribes paid to officials at all levels. Your father's been busy, Thomas told Kyle. How much do you know about his current operation? Enough to testify, Kyle said firmly. I'm tired of watching him hurt people. What he did to you, to your kids, it's worse than anything before. Catherine touched her son's shoulder. We're both ready to talk. Robert's reign of terror ends now. Thomas's next meeting was with Maria Suarez and her daughter Isabella. The girl was pale from chemotherapy, but her eyes sparked with her mother's fighting spirit. The insurance company called, Maria reported. They're investigating Robert's policy changes. Found a pattern of denied claims. Fake employees, missing premiums. Good, Thomas said. He turned to Isabella. How would you like to be part of bringing down the man who denied your treatment? Isabella's smile was fierce. Tell me what you need, Mr. Thomas. The pieces were falling into place. Janet Walsh, Robert's dying assistant, had provided recorded conversations proving his involvement in multiple frauds. The school board was investigating his connection to Dr. Foster's fake credentials. Even Officer Ramirez was cracking, his gambling debts making him a liability rather than an asset. Thomas gathered his allies in room 114, now transformed into a war room. Brandon Torres, Catherine and Kyle Walsh, Maria Suarez, Janet Walsh attending via video call from her hospice bed. Each had suffered under Robert's manipulation. Each brought another piece of the puzzle. Robert's not just fighting for money anymore, Thomas explained. He's fighting for survival. The loan sharks want their millions. The insurance company's freezing assets. His puppets are slipping their strings. What's our next move? Brandon asked. Thomas laid out surveillance photos showing Robert's increasingly erratic behavior. We let him unravel, push him until he makes mistakes. Then we take everything, his money, his freedom, his reputation, everything he stole from us. Kyle studied a photo of his father. He's been selling off assets, pulling money from anywhere he can find it. Even tried to access my trust fund last week. The bank flagged it as suspicious. Your father's desperate, Catherine added. He's burning through Diane's accounts too. They bought a lakeside condo, a new Porsche, jewelry worth hundreds of thousands, all before the insurance payout cleared. Thomas's phone lit up with a message from Samantha Knox. The insurance investigator had traced a pattern of suspicious deposits through Midwest Regional Bank. Look familiar? She wrote, attaching transaction records. Brandon leaned in to examine the data. These match the dates of our missing project funds. Robert's been laundering Cornerstone money through his gambling debts. Not just gambling. Janet's weak voice came through the laptop speaker. I found records of offshore accounts, shell companies. He's been skimming from projects for years, inflating costs and pocketing the difference. Maria spread out documents she'd retrieved from the shredding bin. These invoices are all fake. Companies that don't exist, materials never delivered. Robert signed off on all of them. Thomas pinned the new evidence to his war room wall. Each of you has a piece of the puzzle. Together, we can prove Robert's been running a criminal enterprise through my company. What about my mom? Kyle asked quietly. She's involved in this too. Diane made her choice. Thomas's voice was hard. She helped destroy my family, traumatize my children. She doesn't get mercy just because she was your father's puppet. Catherine touched her son's shoulder. Sometimes the hardest thing is accepting that people we love are capable of terrible things. Janet's cough crackled through the speakers. Robert's planning something big. He called an emergency board meeting for next week. Wants to vote Thomas out permanently, claim mental instability. Let him try, Brandon growled. We've got enough evidence to bury him. Thomas raised a hand. Not yet. We wait until he's committed fully to his next move. Right now, he's scared, making mistakes. Let him dig the hole deeper. The loan sharks are getting impatient, Kyle reported. I overheard him on the phone. They've given him a deadline. Good, Thomas said. Pressure makes people sloppy. Robert's used to being in control, pulling all the strings. Now we watch him dance while his world burns. The meeting continued late into the night, each participant adding details to their plan of attack. Maria would continue monitoring Robert's office activities. Brandon would track company finances. Kyle and Catherine would document Robert's increasingly erratic behavior. Janet would prepare her evidence for law enforcement. As his allies departed, Thomas stood before his evidence wall. Photos, documents, bank records, the paper trail of Robert's destruction. But it wasn't enough to just expose him. Thomas wanted Robert to feel the same helplessness, the same betrayal he'd inflicted on others. His phone buzzed with a text from Xavier. Found something in Robert's cloud backup. Video of him threatening the kids. Want me to leak it to the insurance investigators? Thomas smiled, a predator's grin in the darkness. Robert Walsh thought he was a master puppeteer, but he'd never faced an opponent who'd lost everything and returned for revenge. The puppet master was about to learn that some strings, when pulled too hard, become nooses. The endgame was approaching. Robert's empire of lies, built on betrayal and manipulation, would collapse under the weight of truth. And Thomas would be there to watch it burn, knowing that justice would be served not just for him, but for everyone Robert had hurt along the way. The ghost of Thomas Reeves was no longer just haunting Robert Walsh. It was hunting him. And ghosts, as Robert was about to learn, had nothing left to lose. Chapter 7. The Trap. Thomas sat in his war room at the Prairie Inn Motel, surrounded by the weapons he'd gathered. His phone buzzed with a message from Eleanor Sterling. They booked it, she texted. First-class tickets to the Maldives. Robert's celebrating their impending windfall. Perfect timing. Thomas dialed Brandon Torres. Execute Phase 1. Brandon's voice carried a predatory eagerness. Already on it. Catherine Walsh is making the call about Kyle's arrest now. Robert's going to have a very bad morning. Across town, Catherine Walsh held her phone with steady hands. The call connected after 2 rings. What? Robert's voice snapped. Kyle's been arrested. Catherine kept her voice trembling, panicked. They're holding him downtown. He needs bail money immediately. What are you talking about? What did that idiot do now? Please, Robert. They're threatening serious charges. The detective said something about financial records. A sharp intake of breath. I'll handle it. Don't do anything until I get there. Catherine ended the call, nodding to Thomas. He took the bait. He'll be scrambling to contain Kyle's non-existent arrest for at least 3 hours. While Robert dealt with this crisis, Xavier's team initiated their cyber assault. Moving funds now, the security expert reported. Diane's accounts, the partial insurance payout, everything's being converted to untraceable cryptocurrency. By the time they notice, it'll be too late. Thomas checked his watch. Janet Walsh? Meeting with the FBI in 20 minutes, Brandon confirmed. She's got everything, recordings, documents, years of Robert's schemes. The SEC team is standing by too. In her hospice room, Janet Walsh sat propped against pillows, her frail body contrasting with the steel in her eyes. 2 FBI agents recorded her deposition as she detailed Robert's years of financial fraud. It wasn't just the insurance scams, she explained, her voice weak but clear. He corrupted everyone he touched. Here's proof he bribed Officer Ramirez to bury investigations. Evidence of his real estate schemes with James Morrison. Records of how he threatened Dr. Foster into manipulating Thomas's children. Across the city, dominoes began falling. The medical board received an anonymous tip about Dr. Foster's false credentials. Bank regulators launched a surprise audit of James Morrison's property dealings. Union representatives demanded access to Cornerstone's project records. Thomas's next call was to Patricia Martinez. How are the children? Safe at Eleanor's lake house, Patricia assured him. The security team's in place. I'm finalizing the emergency custody documentation now. Robert's threats against them are going to bury him. In her office, Patricia compiled reports from teachers, counselors, and child psychologists. Emma's black crayon drawings. Michael's fight records. Written statements about Robert's psychological manipulation. Thomas hung up and turned to Maria Suarez. Your daughter's treatment starts tomorrow. I've arranged everything with Mayo Clinic. Maria's eyes filled with tears. Mr. Thomas, I don't know how to thank you. Thank me by making sure the union investigators find those shredded documents you saved. Robert's going to learn what happens when you hurt my people. The trap was set. Each pressure point targeted, each weakness exploited. Thomas looked at the photo wall one last time. Images of his children at the fake funeral, Robert and Diane laughing at his supposed death. Evidence of their betrayal. Send the final package to the insurance investigators, he ordered Xavier. Show them exactly how Robert and Diane staged my death. As dawn broke over Minneapolis, Thomas's phone lit up with messages. The insurance company had frozen all remaining assets. The SEC was moving on Cornerstone shell companies. The medical board had suspended Dr. Foster's license. Robert's desperate voice filled Thomas's voicemail. What the hell is happening? Catherine, Kyle's not in any jail. The insurance company's asking questions. Call me back. Thomas deleted the message without responding. The time for words had passed. Now it was time to watch his enemies burn. Chapter 8. The Fall. The arrest happened exactly as Thomas planned. He stood in the airport terminal shadows, watching federal agents intercept Robert and Diane at the first-class check-in counter. Their Maldives escape would never happen. Robert Walsh, Diane Reeves, the lead agent announced. You're under arrest for insurance fraud, money laundering, and criminal conspiracy. Thomas observed the scene he'd orchestrated. Diane's designer handbag hitting the floor. Robert's face contorting as he realized the game was over. Local news cameras, anonymously tipped off, capturing their downfall. This is a mistake, Robert blustered. Call my lawyer. Call James Morrison. Mr. Morrison is already in custody. The agent cut him off. Along with Officer Ramirez, Dennis Wheeler, and Dr. Foster. Your network's falling apart, Mr. Walsh. Diane's mascara ran in black streaks as she was handcuffed. You don't understand. Thomas abandoned us. We had to do something. Save it for your arraignment, the agent said. We have Janet Walsh's deposition. Complete records of your insurance scams, the fake funeral, everything. Robert's desperation peaked. It was all Diane's idea. She planned the whole thing. I was just trying to help a friend. Shut up, Robert! Diane shrieked. You're the one who forged the documents. You threatened my children. Thomas watched them turn on each other, just as he'd predicted. Their perfect plan crumbling under pressure. Back at the Prairie Inn, Brandon Torres delivered updates on the fallout. Mrs. Henderson came forward voluntarily. Morton from the funeral home gave a full confession. Even Dr. Russell admitted to altering therapy records. And the evidence? Thomas asked. Overwhelming. Bank records, witness testimony, forged documents. Janet's deposition was the nail in the coffin. The prosecutors refusing all plea deals. The dominoes continued falling throughout the day. Thomas monitored each development from his command center. Officer Ramirez broke first under internal affairs pressure. Walsh owned me, he confessed. Gambling debts. He knew about evidence I'd planted in other cases. I didn't have a choice. Dennis Wheeler followed, trading information for leniency. His testimony exposed the web of corrupted officials, each one bought or blackmailed into serving Robert's schemes. Dr. Foster's medical license was permanently revoked. James Morrison faced separate charges for real estate fraud. The loan sharks Robert owed were circling, adding pressure from the criminal underworld. Catherine Walsh provided records of Robert's previous insurance scams. Kyle testified about witnessing his father's violence and threats. Eleanor Sterling revealed Diane's history of false accusations and manipulation. Thomas received a call from Janet Walsh's hospice. She wants to see you, the nurse said. She doesn't have much time left. In her room, Janet gripped Thomas's hand with surprising strength. Did we get them? Yes, Thomas assured her. Your evidence was perfect. They're going away for a long time. Janet's smile was fierce despite her weakness. Good. Robert Walsh destroyed so many lives. It was time someone destroyed his. The preliminary hearing painted a devastating picture. Robert and Diane sat at separate tables, their lawyers already positioning them against each other. The prosecutor laid out the case, a criminal enterprise spanning years. Insurance fraud, money laundering, child exploitation. The defendants didn't just fake Mr. Reeves's death. They orchestrated a campaign of psychological torture against his children. Thomas watched from the gallery as Emma's art therapy drawings were entered into evidence. Black crayon scenes of crashes and graves. Pictures of the bad man threatening her family. Michael's counseling records detailed the trauma. Subject exhibits severe trust issues and anger management problems stemming from forced participation in father's fake death. The judge's face hardened as she reviewed Robert's threats against the children. Bail denied for both defendants. They'll remain in custody until trial. Outside the courthouse, Thomas faced a barrage of reporters. His statement was brief. Justice will be served. Not just for my family, but for everyone they hurt. Later in Eleanor's lake house, he hugged his children. Emma's drawings were starting to show colors again. Michael's baseball mitt had emerged from its hiding place under his bed. Are the bad people going away? Emma asked. Yes, princess. They can't hurt us anymore. Michael's voice was stronger now. Good. I never believed you were dead, Dad. Not really. Thomas held them close, feeling their healing begin. The revenge he'd orchestrated wasn't just about punishment. It was about protection, making sure no one could ever hurt his family again. His phone buzzed with a final message from Xavier. All assets secured. Their accounts are empty. Everything they stole has been reclaimed. Thomas looked at his children, then out at the lake where Eleanor's security team patrolled. The trap had sprung perfectly. His enemies were caught, their weapons turned against them, their empire reduced to ashes. The man who died in room 114 hadn't just come back to life. He'd come back stronger, more dangerous, ready to burn down the world to protect what was his. Chapter 9. Phoenix Rising. 1 year later, Thomas adjusted his tie before entering Judge Rebecca Martinez's courtroom. The verdict was a foregone conclusion. His revenge had been too complete, the evidence too overwhelming for any other outcome. The judge's voice rang with authority. Robert Walsh, on multiple counts of fraud, conspiracy, money laundering, and child endangerment, this court sentences you to 25 years in federal prison. Robert's designer suit hung loose on his frame, his arrogance replaced by defeat. He didn't look at Thomas as officers led him away. Diane Reeves, the judge continued, for your role in this criminal conspiracy and the psychological abuse of your own children. 20 years in federal prison. Diane's mascara ran once again as she was handcuffed. Thomas, please. The children need their mother. The children need healing from what you did to them. Thomas cut her off. They'll get it without you. The judge addressed the gallery. Let this serve as a warning. Using children as pawns in adult schemes will not be tolerated. This court grants full custody to Thomas Reeves, with Eleanor Sterling as designated guardian when necessary. Outside, Brandon Torres waited with news about Cornerstone's resurrection. Q1 profits are up 40%. The new management team's solid. Maria's doing amazing things in HR. Thomas nodded. He'd promoted Brandon to Chief Operations Officer, recognizing the loyalty that had helped expose Robert's schemes. Maria Suarez, now HR Director, had implemented ironclad employee protections. How's Isabella's treatment? He asked. Brandon grinned. Cancer-free as of last week. Maria says the doctors at Mayo worked miracles. At Cornerstone's headquarters, Catherine Walsh had transformed the financial department. Her forensic accounting skills proved invaluable in untangling Robert's web of fraud. We've recovered most of the stolen funds, she reported. I'm setting up a foundation for fraud victims, focusing on families and children. Kyle Walsh, now in college, spent summers interning at Cornerstone. His relationship with Thomas helped heal wounds left by Robert's betrayal. Dad's letters stopped coming, Kyle mentioned during lunch. Mom says he's not doing well in prison. Some people don't handle losing control very well, Thomas replied. How are your classes? Good. I'm thinking about law school. Maybe help other families fight back against fraud. Thomas's home life found new rhythms. Emma's artwork evolved from black funeral scenes to bright family portraits. Her new art therapist helped her process trauma through color and creativity. Michael returned to baseball with renewed passion. Thomas never missed a game now. Brandon coached the team, showing the boy healthy male mentorship. Eleanor Sterling surprised everyone by becoming a fierce advocate for fraud prevention. Her social connections amplified awareness about financial exploitation and child manipulation. I was wrong about you, she told Thomas over dinner. You're exactly what this family needed. Even Mrs. Henderson found redemption through community service. Her husband's medical bills were covered by a class action settlement against Robert's schemes. Janet Walsh's memory lived on through a scholarship fund for children of terminal cancer patients. Her final act of courage continued creating positive change. Thomas sold the old house, too full of betrayal shadows. The new home, chosen with his children's input, became their fresh start. Yellow, Emma declared, picking her room's color. Because it's happy like us now, Daddy. Michael insisted on a garage big enough for a new project car. Can we restore this one together? Brandon says the engine's basically sound. Thomas's relationship with Patricia Martinez grew naturally, built on shared concern for the children's welfare. They took things slowly, mindful of recent trauma. The school board approved our new program, Patricia reported, teaching kids to recognize manipulation and emotional abuse. Your story's making a difference. 5 years after his devastating homecoming, Thomas stood in his Cornerstone office. The wall displayed new family photos, Emma's school achievements, Michael's sports victories, holiday gatherings with their expanded support system. Kyle Walsh, now graduated and hired as a project manager, knocked on his door. Teams ready in the conference room. The Children's Advocacy Center plans need your approval. Thomas straightened his father's watch, recovered during asset seizure, returned by the FBI. The same timepiece that had marked betrayal now counted moments of triumph. His phone buzzed, a text from Patricia. Emma got the lead in the school play. Michael says you better not be late this time. Love you. Thomas smiled, typing back a quick response. The lesson had been brutal but clear. Time was precious, betrayal was costly, but real love was worth protecting at any price. That night, helping Emma rehearse lines and listening to Michael's baseball stories, Thomas realized he'd gained more than he'd lost. His children were healing. His business thrived. His heart open to new possibilities. The price of betrayal had been high, but the rewards of resilience proved priceless. The man who died in room 114 hadn't just returned. He'd become something stronger, someone who would never again let trust blind him to treachery. The ghost of Thomas Reeves had transformed into a phoenix, rising from betrayal's ashes to build something unbreakable. His enemies' weapons had become his tools for redemption, their schemes transformed into foundations for a better future. In the end, the best revenge wasn't just destroying those who hurt him. It was building something stronger from the wreckage of their betrayal. Epilogue. 10 years later, Thomas Reeves strode through the gleaming headquarters of Cornerstone Building Solutions, now the largest construction and development company in the Midwest. At 52, his hair had traces of gray at the temples, but his presence still commanded respect and a hint of fear from those who knew his story. The 10th floor, once Robert Walsh's domain, now housed the Cornerstone Foundation, dedicated to helping victims of financial fraud and supporting children affected by parental crimes. Catherine Walsh, his chief financial officer, had transformed their mission beyond mere construction. The latest numbers are in, Catherine announced as Thomas entered the conference room. She'd aged gracefully into her role as one of Minneapolis's most respected business leaders. Our victim support programs helped over 3,000 families last year. The scholarship funds fully endowed. Thomas nodded, studying the reports. The foundation, built with recovered funds from Robert's schemes, had become a force for justice. How's Kyle doing at the DA's office? Catherine beamed with pride. Her son had graduated law school with honors and now prosecuted white-collar crimes. Just won another major fraud case. He says working here during college showed him how to fight back against people like his father. The mention of Robert Walsh barely registered anymore. Thomas's former friend had died in prison 3 years ago, alone and forgotten. Diane had attempted parole twice, denied both times due to her continued refusal to acknowledge the psychological damage she'd inflicted on her children. Brandon Torres, now Cornerstone's president of operations, entered with the latest project proposals. At 45, he'd helped expand the company across 12 states. That development in Detroit you wanted? The one where we're converting abandoned factories into affordable housing? Greenlit this morning. Good, Thomas said. Make sure Maria's team handles the HR setup. I want solid benefits for workers from day one. Maria Suarez had revolutionized Cornerstone's employee support systems. Her daughter, Isabella, now cancer-free for 9 years, was finishing medical school. The healthcare program she designed became a model for other corporations. Mr. Thomas. Isabella's voice rang out as she passed the conference room. Despite her busy residency schedule, she still visited regularly. Mom wanted me to remind you about the foundation gala next month. I'm giving the keynote speech. Thomas checked his calendar, already marked. He never missed important events anymore. That lesson had been learned at too high a price. A text message lit up his phone. Dad got into Harvard Law. Full ride through the Walsh Reeves Scholarship Fund. Can we celebrate tonight? Michael. Pride swelled in Thomas's chest. His son, now 20, had channeled his childhood anger into a passion for justice. The Scholarship Fund, named to acknowledge both the dark past and brighter future, helped children of fraud victims attend college. Emma, 17, was already making waves in the art world. Her first gallery showing, paintings that transformed trauma into triumph, had sold out in hours. The black crayon drawings that once depicted her pain now hung in the foundation's headquarters, reminding everyone why their work mattered. Your daughter's latest piece just arrived, Catherine mentioned. The one she's donating for the charity auction? It's incredible. The painting in question now dominated the foundation's lobby, a phoenix rising from ashes, but rendered in bright, healing colors. Emma had titled it Room 114, a reference only the family understood. Patricia Martinez, now Patricia Reeves, handled the foundation's educational outreach. Her marriage to Thomas 5 years ago had healed old wounds and created new joy. Together, they developed programs teaching children to recognize and resist manipulation. The curriculum's been adopted by 30 more school districts, Patricia reported, joining them with fresh coffee. Even got inquiries from overseas. Eleanor Sterling, at 75, remained a fierce advocate for their cause. Her social connections had evolved into a powerful network of supporters and donors. She'd finally found her true calling, protecting others from the kind of pain her daughter had inflicted. "Grandmother's hosting another fundraiser," Emma texted. "Says we need to expand the teen support programs. Can we stop by later?" Thomas responded immediately, "Of course. Bring your new sketches." Mrs. Henderson, now running a support group for families affected by medical fraud, had become one of their strongest community liaisons. Her husband's recovery had inspired her to help others navigate healthcare scams. Janet Walsh Memorial Scholarship applications are up 40%, Catherine noted, referring to the fund honoring Robert's former assistant. Her final testimony is still helping people, even years later. The original Prairie Inn Motel had been demolished years ago, replaced by a modern counseling center. But room 114's key hung framed in Thomas's office, a reminder that sometimes a man had to die to become stronger. The FBI called, Brandon mentioned. They want you to speak at their financial crimes seminar again. Said last year's presentation led to 20% more fraud convictions. Thomas checked his watch, his father's watch, recovered during the asset seizure. Schedule it, but make sure it doesn't conflict with Michael's graduation or Emma's next show. A knock at the door revealed Kyle Walsh with case files. At 27, he'd become the youngest senior prosecutor in the white-collar crimes division. Got another insurance scam case. Mind if I pick your brain? Always, Thomas gestured to a chair. Kyle had become like another son, proving that family wasn't just about blood. The day continued with its usual rhythm. Thomas reviewed construction projects, approved foundation grants, and mentored young executives. But his focus never wavered from the true priority, the family he'd nearly lost and fought so brutally to protect. Evening found them gathered at Eleanor's estate. Michael shared Harvard acceptance stories while Emma sketched preliminary designs for her next exhibition. Patricia discussed expanding their educational programs while Brandon's kids played baseball in the sprawling yard. "Did you ever imagine this?" Patricia asked quietly, watching their blended family thrive. 10 years ago, when everything seemed lost, Thomas remembered the man who died in that motel room. The one who believed in second chances and honest work. That man had been naive, but his death had birthed something stronger. A protector who understood that trust must be earned and loyalty must be absolute. "I imagined revenge," he admitted. "But this is better." Catherine raised her glass. "To Janet Walsh," she said solemnly. "And to everyone else who helped expose the truth." To room 114, Kyle added, understanding the significance. Where it all turned around, the family toasted as sunset painted the sky in Emma's favorite colors. Thomas studied their faces, his children whole and thriving, his wife passionate about protecting others, his extended family of allies turned loved ones. The price of betrayal had been high, but the rewards continued multiplying. Later that night, Thomas worked in his home office, reviewing files for Kyle's new case. The wall opposite his desk displayed family photos and achievement awards, but also reminders. Emma's black crayon drawings, Michael's hidden baseball mitt, the Prairie Inn room key. Brandon called with updates about their Detroit project. Maria sent final approval for the new benefits package. Catherine forwarded the latest foundation statistics. Each message represented another brick in the fortress he'd built from betrayal's ruins. A text from Diane's prison psychiatrist arrived, still no progress. Continues to justify actions. Recommend denying next parole request. Thomas archived the message without response. Diane's continued denial had stopped matching years ago. She'd chosen her path, and now lived with the consequences. Emma knocked on his door, art portfolio in hand. "Dad, can you look at these concepts for the Foundation's new awareness campaign?" Her designs showed strength emerging from darkness, healing blooming from pain. At 17, she'd already helped countless other children process their trauma through art. Michael called via video chat from his dorm room, eager to discuss his pre-law courses. His passion for justice burned bright, fueled by personal experience and his brother-mentor relationship with Kyle. Patricia joined them, bringing coffee and updates about a new family they were helping. Another case of financial fraud tearing children's lives apart. Tomorrow they'd mobilize the Foundation's resources, offering the support Thomas's family had lacked during their crisis. 10 years, Patricia mused later as they prepared for bed. Sometimes it feels like another lifetime. It was, Thomas agreed. The man who died in room 114 would never have imagined this future, not just surviving betrayal, but transforming it into a force for good. His phone buzzed one final time. Isabella Suarez had finished her oncology residency interview. Maria's daughter, once denied care by Robert's schemes, would soon be treating children with cancer at Mayo Clinic. Thomas smiled, remembering his promise to Maria a decade ago. "I take care of my people." That commitment had expanded beyond Cornerstone's walls, beyond Minneapolis, beyond anything he'd imagined during those dark days of revenge. The next morning dawned bright and busy. The Foundation had 3 new cases to evaluate. Cornerstone was breaking ground on 2 major projects. Michael needed help preparing for a debate competition. Emma's art program for trauma survivors was expanding to another school. Kyle arrived early to discuss case strategy. Catherine had acquisition proposals to review. Brandon was coordinating their Detroit development. Maria's team was implementing new worker protection policies. Eleanor called about hosting a fundraiser for their latest initiative. Mrs. Henderson needed support for her medical fraud awareness program. The FBI wanted to schedule another training seminar. Thomas handled each task with the same ruthless efficiency that had once fueled his revenge. But now that drive served a different purpose. Building rather than destroying, protecting rather than punishing, healing rather than hurting. The man who died in room 114 had wanted vengeance. The man who rose from those ashes had found something far more powerful. The ability to transform betrayal's poison into medicine for others' wounds. 10 years later, Thomas Reeves stood at the head of an empire built not on corruption like Robert's, but on justice. Not on manipulation like Diane's, but on truth. Not on betrayal like his enemies had attempted, but on unshakable loyalty. The price of betrayal had been high, but the return on that investment continued growing. Each life they touched, each family they helped, each child they protected added another 0 to the cosmic balance sheet. In the end, the best revenge hadn't just been destroying those who hurt him or even building something stronger from the wreckage. It had been creating a legacy that would continue fighting betrayal's darkness long after room 114's key had rusted to dust. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.